Konnichiwa and welcome to another episode of Guild Wars 2 Daily. I know I've just jumped to Japan with the intro, probably didn't say it very well. I know I kind of felt like that was a bit of a cop-out, but I suppose since we did do Russia before, I can kind of just go across Russia and then straight to Japan. Thing is, there's an awful lot of countries that it's becoming increasingly harder to learn how to say hello in their language. You might have like a random word on there at some point, but then it might contradict with something a different website says, and very rarely does anyone actually have like the actual pronunciation in a recording form on there, which is usually quite helpful. So yeah, we've gone to Japan. Don't know how many more greetings I'll end up being able to come up with. I will keep going at least for the next week though. We'll see where it goes from there. Maybe we can do something else daily beyond there. But anyway, hi guys. Today we're going to be talking about lore. One question and one topic that really I haven't talked about that's quite an interesting topic that I thought would be quite cool. And also, I really should open this up by telling you guys, I've seen on the last couple of lore videos some requests for a certain topic that I've actually already done. A lot of you, well at least some of you have been asking, and there's been a lot of thumbs on the specific comments, have been asking about Palawa Joko. You want to know like how much we know about him? The truth is he's a character we don't know that much about. I've seen people asking for specific spotlights on him, but really, even though he's this fantastic, interesting character, and he is actually a character, he's a cool guy that's got a very, you know, you could identify him from the way he speaks. He's actually got a real personality to him, and he is a very mysterious character. Despite these facts, I couldn't really talk about him for much more than 10 minutes straight. So I've not done a spotlight on him, and I don't plan to do one on him. However, if you do look through Guild Wars 2 Daily, a while ago now, I did an episode called Palawa Joko versus Zaitan, and one of the questions on there does talk about Palawa Joko, about the fact he is a lich, and about the fact that one of the other prominent liches we knew in the Guild Wars universe came from Ore and seemed to be transformed into that lich because of powers at Ore. That seems to suggest it's something to do with Zaitan. Maybe Palawa Joko is a previous champion of Zaitan, blah 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 blah. Lots of interesting theories, but that's all been discussed before. I'm really starting to find this a lot with a lot of questions that you guys are asking with the lore, that I've just gone over it before. We've gone over a hell of a lot now. Time's kind of just slipped by, which is why I'm trying to make a push away from Q&A. That said, I do have one question that I thought was very interesting to do with allegiances that I can look at in a minute. But really, we can segue from Palawa Joko into another little bit of story that I saw somebody leaving a comment about on one of the recent videos. It wasn't an out-and-out question, but it's a great topic that I haven't talked about. Palawa Joko's long-time best buddy, best old pal, Mad King Thorn. Mad King Thorn is another character in the Guild Wars universe that you might have heard the name of, but you might not have any idea of what's going on with him. He's a pretty crazy character. If I just said that Palawa Joko's got a lot of personality, this guy has got even more. Mad King Thorn is a fan favourite for a lot of people. He's a very interesting character, and just as mysterious as well, I suppose, as Palawa Joko, and the two characters do have a bit of history with one another. So, very briefly, to establish Palawa Joko's history, or what we know of it, at some point we knew he was an up-and-coming king in Alona, and we only heard this through Mad King Thorn, by the way, but at some point he was an up-and-coming king in Alona. At some point he was a lich. Whether he was always a lich or not is debatable, we don't know, and in any case he became an immortal lich at some point, tried to conquer all of Alona, was beat back by Chiriosa, couldn't be killed, was imprisoned until the events of Guild Wars 1 during Nightfall, in which case we released him, and then over the 250 years from that point he rebuilt up his armies and fully captured Alona again in the 250 year gap. So that's Palawa Joko. That's what we knew about him. But there's another character called Mad King Thorn that, while Palawa Joko was like this up-and-coming king, he knew Mad King Thorn. Mad King Thorn has nothing to do with Alona. He has to do with Kryta. So you might, if you've heard the name Mad King Thorn, it's probably in combination with Halloween. So Halloween is celebrated in the Guild Wars universe. Christmas isn't celebrated in the Guild Wars universe. Instead, they celebrate Winter's Day, which is pretty much Christmas as we know it, except instead of being to celebrate Christmas, it's to celebrate their new year, which they call Winter's Day. But Halloween does exist in lore, in the Guild Wars universe. There is such a thing as Halloween, and people do celebrate it. They don't celebrate it in Cantha. They don't tend to celebrate things similar to those northern continents, but both in Nightfall and in Kryta at the very least, but it certainly seems like more areas than that as well, just generally interior up north. They do celebrate Halloween, but why do they celebrate Halloween? What's the lore reason for Halloween ever existing in Guild Wars? Well, it's because of this character, Mad King Thorn. So here's the story, basically. Mad King Thorn was a mad king of Kryta a long time ago. We don't even have like a specific date of how long ago it was, but you get the impression that it was a really long time ago. I'm not sure whether so long ago that it was before King Doric, which is an interesting point because obviously last lore episode we were talking about King Doric. The idea that Mad King Thorn has blood of King Doric in him is very interesting. But in any case, he was an old king of Kryta, and he was corrupt. He was corrupt as hell. He would have great feasts and banquets for himself and all of his court, while everywhere else was in a famine in Kryta, and he was just generally a terrible, terrible king. And if you actually were to go to the wiki and read about Mad King Thorn to like see what he's about, you'll find that there's a lot of really weird random facts about the character. Like, there's no real flow to the kind of things we know about this character, and a lot of them just seem like ridiculous little factoids that don't seem to fit in with anything. That's because where this character is very much to do with the Halloween lore, and where ArenaNet are so light-hearted and footloose and fancy-free, shall we say, during the festival event in Guild Wars 1, where they're so loose with these things, a lot of the lore that's established is quite jokey and light-hearted. So when you come to this character that is at the end of the day now, as I'll explain, becoming a very seemingly important character, he's also a character that's got all these ridiculous facts about him. So, for example, when you learn how this man died, this king, basically everybody rebelled against him eventually. He was such a corrupt, bad king that everybody decided, no, we've had enough of you, we're going to kill you. Everyone storms his castle, his massive keep. All of the people working under his employ also presumably hated him at this point too, so they just kind of left him there to fend for himself, and he died. And the actual lore goes that after his death, the mob was said to have been very creative, in inverted quotes, with his corpse, and then afterwards everybody burnt the palace down. So you just get these like funny little tips and things that are flicked in through all of his story that I don't know how seriously we can take them. I suppose we should take them very seriously and just assume he had quite a funny life with the way he lived and the way he died. But also it's quite dark humour as well. I think this is the reason why some people were thinking about Mad King Thorn lately. We did that episode on the dark lore, and I did see somebody mentioned, and I think you're totally right with this, a lot of the lore that's established here with Mad King Thorn is also very dark. He was a seriously corrupt bad king. Halloween makes, you know, it all lighthearted and jokey, just like in real life. You know how we have Halloween that's, you know, supposed to be all terrifying and horrific, but no one ever really sees it that way. We all take it quite light-hearted. It's the same in the Guild Wars lore, so it's quite dark what they're talking about. Like, for example, he had people skinned alive while they were starving and they were complaining at him for having these banquets. He had his first wife burned alive, who only became his wife in the first place because he took her father as, like, his hostage to basically force her into marrying him. So then, and that triggered off all these wars and stuff. So it's quite dark what they talk about, but they always just kind of say it quite jestfully. But that's really Mad King Thorn. The reason why Halloween is celebrated in both Tyria and Ilona is because this wife, she was from Ilona. So if you play Nightfall, when you go into Halloween, you get all these quests about that history between the wife and so on. So that's why the common people there know about Mad King Thorn. He's known very much for his jokes, really, that you can meet this character in game, and I'll explain why in a second. Even though he died a long time ago because he used to be this old king, you can meet him in game. Halloween is essentially, even though he's dead, Mad King Thorn as a spirit is something more than a regular spirit. They actually call him a spirit lord a lot of the time. He's something more than just a normal spirit. In fact, his afterlife is the underworld. That's where he was sent to. But within the underworld, for whatever reason, whether it's Grenth's doing or Doom's doing back then, as it might have been, he's for some reason got his own section of the underworld called the Mad Realm, which we've never actually been properly inside. But he's got his own section of the underworld that's devoted to him, and he kind of lords over, known as the Mad Realm. And in addition to having this cushy, nice place for himself in the afterlife, he's also allowed to leave the Mad Realm, but he can only leave the Mad Realm on one day a year. Did you guess what year that might be? Yeah, it's Halloween. So the lore in Guild Wars 1 is there's this mad king that comes back from the Mad Realm once a year, and he comes back to Tyria and he creates chaos. He starts, you know, transforming people with all of his Spirit Lord powers, and he just kind of, everything runs amok. And Halloween really is people celebrating him coming back, but not just celebrating him, also kind of fearing him. When you actually go in-game in Halloween and speak to the NPCs that have been transformed into, like, skeletons and stuff, they'll actually be be very distressed by it, but it's all quite funny. And in the end of the event, Mad King Thorn will appear to you in-game, and in fact, he just stands there and tells jokes, and he's quite famous for his terrible, terrible jokes that eventually were updated in-game. And that was kind of his story. That's what he was. He was just this guy that appeared in Halloween, and of course, because he's a spirit lord, there's all the reason to believe that in Guild Wars 2, he could also appear for Halloween. And it's not just necessarily a human-centric thing either. You can definitely say that Winter's Day is a human-centric thing, because it's the humans celebrating when they believe the new year begins, and in particular also the gods fighting over control of the new year kind of thing. So that's very human-centric, but Halloween doesn't have to be. So we could have an actual event in Guild Wars 2 continuing Halloween where we see more of Mad King Thorn. Now, it gets even more complicated than that though. At first he was just kind of this jokey character that was a bit of a fan favourite, but was never really that serious in lore, right? But in the later years of Guild Wars 1's development, once they decided that Guild Wars 2 was going to come out, they started expanding on more stuff that was coming out in Halloween, adding more quests and stuff, and a plot eventually began to develop that was somewhat tied into the story of Doom awakening within the underworld, that whole plot of you going in and fighting Doom. So they're quite intertwined, because Mad King Thorn is obviously from the underworld as well. But they introduced this storyline now where Mad King Thorn, in his undeath as a spirit lord, he's still got a court, a group of people that kind of worship him and want to help him. And these are called the Lunatic Court. And it's the Lunatic Court's goal, these characters in the universe, to make sure Mad King Thorn can now come back to Tyria, the physical mortal realm, all year, not just one day a year, but all year. They want him to be able to come back. And at Halloween in the later years during Guild Wars, you could actually help the Lunatic Court reach these aims. You could actually help them bring this about. But the way that they're hoping to do this is, in the lore they've established now, that there's this ritual that they have to go through for Mad King Thorn to be able to come back to the mortal realm. The idea is there's lots of seals, these seals on essentially whatever his punishment is within the underworld, and the Lunatic Court need to break each and every one of these seals to release Mad King Thorn so he can come back out all year round. And one of those seals did break in Guild Wars 1's time. I believe a second one might have broke as well, but I'm 100% sure one of them did. When the Warring Kryta was released, the first chapter of Guild Wars Beyond, the free updates that kind of introduced essentially another campaign, that's the way I look at it. When that first came out, obviously we put Salma back on the throne in Kryta instead of the White Mantle. We kicked them out, and by doing that we actually broke one of the seals that was holding Mad King Thorn back. So one of them's down already. I'm not sure how many seals there are. The number 8 came to my mind, but I'm looking here, I can't quite see that there's 8. But anyway, there were a certain amount of seals that need to be broken, and we've already broken one of them, and that immediately has had repercussions. There was another mechanic they added into PvP as it started to die. They basically embraced the idea of Flavour of the Month, which obviously isn't something a lot of people like the idea of for a competitive game, but as Guild Wars 1 got a bit older, they decided to just embrace that, and they introduced this mechanic called Flux, and this meant that every single month in-game there'd be a different effect applied to characters in PvP to keep things interesting. And the lore excuse for why this flux is happening is because the PvP battle isles are close to the mist, because there's that portal to the mist there that was opened that actually get people to the Hall of Heroes for Heroes Ascent. And the lore is that because it's kind of close to the mist, this first seal was broken because of the Lunatic Court, and now that's caused fluctuations in power around the area, and that's why that's happening. So one seal's been broken. I've talked a lot about expansions on Guild Wars 2 Daily. This is one thing I've always forgotten to come back to when I've talked about future plots that might happen. Mad King Thorn, this could be huge. He could be a seriously dangerous character that could come forward in a storyline in Guild Wars 2 after all these seals have been broken. It's been 250 years since Guild Wars 1. How much more progress has the Lunatic Court made? I guess we'll see in the first Halloween for Guild Wars 2. I'm sure he'll be a character that comes back. He'll have more crazy jokes for us. It should be really, really interesting. And as I said, Mad King Thorn, while he was a king and was alive, he knew Palawa Joko, who was kind of lording over or becoming a king way down in Alona. So these two knew each other. They're kind of rivals. They're quite similar in many ways, and obviously Palawa Joko is a massive character in Guild Wars 2. He's taken over Alona. There's so many directions they could take this in. Mad King Thorn could come back with a Lunatic Court, and then we might team up with Mad King Thorn to take out Palawa Joko. But then Palawa Joko is also in battle with Zaitan at the moment, so once Zaitan's been removed from the picture, what does that... It boggles my mind. There's so many threads and stuff weaved together here. That's Mad King Thorn anyway. I kind of made this into a spotlight. I didn't mean to. I did have a question. But maybe we can just answer that next time on another episode of Guild Wars 2 Daily, because I thought I was going to talk about that for a long time. Basically, it's about... who we can consider evil and who we can consider good in the Guild Wars universe, especially with prophecies, because Glint, I'm sure a lot of you are aware of who Glint is now. It's one of the champions of Kralkatorrik, who now, spoilers, I haven't really done a spoiler warning, but a spoiler if you've not read the novels, guys, the second novel, I'll give you time to turn it off. She dies in the second book, so she was this defected Elder Dragon champion of Kralkatorrik, and we always kind of saw her as this good character in prophecies, but there are reasons to believe why she might be evil, and there are other races and stuff, that lots going on in prophecies to do with who's evil and who's not. We can talk about that next time on Guild Wars 2 Daily though. Tomorrow we'll start having a look at the server stuff. In any case, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll have more news and mechanics and stuff for you in the future. Any questions you might have, leave them down in the comment section down below. I'm not going to shy away from Q&A too quickly, but I do want to move away from it. So also, if you do have any ideas of particular things you'd like to see outside of Q&A or spotlights that I've not been doing at the moment, let me know. Honestly, let me know. I'm free and easy. I'm up for doing all kinds of different stuff. So yeah, in any case, there you go, guys. Thanks very much for watching, and I guess I'll see you tomorrow. Oh, before we go, I should probably mention that Mad King Thorn has a giant pumpkin on his head. That's what his head is. It's a pumpkin. So yeah, there's that too. For those of you new to the universe, you probably wouldn't have known that, but yeah, there you go. He's got a pumpkin head. Brilliant. Anyway, there you go, guys. I'll see you next time.